Hey, what's up, what's up, what's up, what's up, what's up? Gracious good morning to you, good people. It's your girl KB. You know what I do, and you know why I do it. It's Wednesday morning. It's July 9th, and it's 4:11 in the a.m. I want to share something with you that struck me as odd. Hold on, let me adjust my camera. Um, it struck me as odd. My algorithm got screwed up for whatever reason, and I was kicked out of a path that I was on for a couple of weeks, and today it popped up again. I don't know which video I watched to bring me back, but it's back up, and I just kind of let things free flow, so I can get ideas and thoughts running through my head about certain aspects of life, more specific my life, and just keeping it real, keeping it raw, keeping it 100. This morning, I did not have my normal gospel music on in my car. I found this smooth kind of mellow station that I listen to off and on Sirius XM. It's called The Fly, and it plays a lot of late 90s, early 2000 music, R&B, and I know it's kind of young for me. The music is kind of young for me, but back in the days when I was clubbing, yeah, your girl has a past. Back in the days when I was clubbing really hard, the music was different. And most of the time I was dancing, so I wasn't really listening to lyrics. But now that I've slowed down and mellowed out a little bit, I pay attention to what goes in my dome. Because some things, are toxic. Some thoughts are toxic. And, we're singing them, not really thinking about how they're embedding themselves. And, I was paying attention toward the end of Pride Month. A couple of 2-3 folks at work were talking about Pride, and, everything that was popping up on my TikTok for a minute was talking about Pride. And, it started me to thinking about how certain aspects of people's interpretation of theology has made a certain group of people self-loathing. And it's just like self-loathing. They're hearing negative messages about who they are from the people who say that they love them, from their family. I can't tell you how many stories I saw related to that. And then there's the normal breakup stories, and then the I told you so's. And I say the breakup stories and the I told you so's together because there are a lot of folks that believe, that there's something wrong with loving somebody. There's something wrong with this transactional kind of love that we've accepted as love. There's something wrong with the inability to maintain loyalty to someone and fidelity with who you say you love. I personally don't believe in the term falling out of love. If you say you love someone, it's not temporal. Love is nowhere in Scripture does it say love has a time limit. Lust, however, has an expiration date. So all that being said, that's the big opening, the big prelude to, I'm sitting in the car and I'm gigging to Ashanti. And the title of the song is Foolish. Now, never really listen to the lyrics. The opening part, everybody knows. See, my days are cold without you, and I'm hurting while I'm with you. And I had to think about that. As much as I've heard this song, I had to think about this, because that's the kind of love I've experienced. Now, mind you, I had a partner of 14 years. 14 years. His partner passed away. But there was this period of time where it was just nasty. And I lived that. And there was some infidelity. And I'm going to say, I am not the guilty party. I've seen too much of that in my lifetime with my parents. You know, there's some things that are just toxic. And when you see it and it's in your household and you know that's the way people operate, you don't want any parts of that. So you're the person who breaks that chain, but there's still some toxic behavior that leads up to that. Now, some of that I am guilty of. See, and as I was listening to the lyrics, it was just, eye-opening on how I gave to this song. And, man, and now how I really identify with the things that I was gigging to, and how it impacted me and how it impacted others, because it's not all about me, which we have a tendency to think when we're talking about love. And I've shared with you guys that my favorite passage of scripture is about love, 1 Corinthians chapter 13. But we don't think about all the things that influence that word love, or that we allow to influence that word love. Notice how I phrased that word love. We have the perfect definition in scripture, but on a fleshly level, we have things that influence that. There's some level of accountability in being in love, in demonstrating love. And for the most part, we want the feels without the accountability. And then when the accountability piece becomes something that you have to hold on to, that you have to deal with, that you have to understand, that you have to address, not only in yourself, doing the self-work, but in your communication with maintaining the connection with your partner. And therein lies the rub. Are you mature enough? And I'm not talking about chronological age. I'm not talking about what you know to do. I am talking about emotional maturity. Not the cursory, I'm sorry. You've heard me preach on this before. An apology has parts. 1, you acknowledge what you did. 2, you ask for forgiveness. 3, you restore. What can I do to make this right? You also have to allow time for that communication to really sink in and for the individual to heal. You also have to be prepared to hear. Remember that time. You did the damage. So just like you need time for concrete to set, You need that time. You also need to make it clear that because you need that time to heal, that does not give you permission to go do whatever as a get back. You know, is this of value to you? Is this important to you? You know, there's some ground rules that need to be established. You know, my partner back in the day used to say there are some non-negotiables in relationships. This is what it is. This is what it's going to stay. And, you know, you need to listen to hear if that person has an escape clause for their non-negotiables. You know, the tit for tat rules. Yeah. Again, we have the perfect blueprint for love, but we need to understand why we don't adhere to it. And we, I mean the collective. We need the emotional maturity and, you know, the willingness to accept the accountability. Think about that. Now, I got all that from a silly song, but think about that.